Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming to this virtual discussion of IAFA at a time when you have so many breaking news on the Indian television from different parts of the world. Now, a special thanks to all our panelists. All of them have come so many times on our discussions, except Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor. A special thanks to you for coming on board. Now, we have been watching all the briefing by the Foreign Secretary, by the GMO. We have heard the national address of the Prime Minister, his doctrine and his red lines and whatever bluff we have called. So we are not going to repeat. But I will urge you all is to really tell something, your own assessment, your own impressions and what is in store in coming years. Because if one really goes by common sense understanding is that yes, whatever we are asking that question, whether ISI and Pakistani army have learned a lesson, most people think the emphatic answer is no. But as Donald Trump says, never say no. This is what he told the Canadian Prime Minister in the whole office. So one doesn't know. Now, you all see the panelists on the television, you read their newspaper, read their books, so there is no need to really give lengthy introduction. But as a courtesy, I will read out a few lines about each one of you, and then we go from there. Now, Professor Chintamani Mahapatra is a former rector, Professor of American Studies at JNU, is the founder of honorary chairperson of Kalinga Institute of Indo-Pacific Studies. He was editor of Indian Foreign Affairs Journal, published by the Association of Indian Diplomats. Professor Mahapatra has authored 8 books and contributed dozens of chapters to various books and has published research papers reputed journals. He has been awarded Fulbright Fellowship, Cornwall Fellowship, and Visiting Fellowship to undertake research in the US, UK, Australia, and many other countries. Now, Captain Alok Bansal has served in the Navy for 32 years and commanded 2 warships. He holds a PhD in International Affairs and currently the Director of Indian Foundation, India Foundation, and Secretary General of Asian Eurasian Human Rights Forum. He has been visiting professor at Jamia Millia Islamia and served as the Executive Director of National Maritime Foundation. He has been associated with IDS in Center of Land Warfare Studies. He has authored 10 books. He focuses on maritime security, Southeastern geopolitics, and internal dynamics of Pakistan. Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor commissioned Indian Air Force in 1985 as a seasoned pilot, para jumper, and flying instructor with 8,000 flying hours. He has participated in IPKF operation, Malay operation, high altitude and maritime operations, and helped in inducting and operationalizing the 5 different advanced aircraft in IAF. In his 4-decade-long career, he has served as Commandant of the Air Force Academy and the NDA and retired as Director General Inspection Safety at the Air Headquarters. He won 2 presidential awards, namely Vayu Sena Medal and Ati Visis Seva Medal. He is holder of PhD and engaged with so many think tanks. Post-retirement, Air Marshal Kapoor is known for his writing, lecturing, and informed comment on television. My friend T.C. Raghavan, who holds a PhD in agrarian history of Narmada Valley, has served as High Commissioner of Singapore and Deputy High Commissioner and High Commissioner to Pakistan. He is known not only for his knowledge on Pakistan, but also for unearthing historical characters. His book, The People Next Door, The Curious History of India's Relation to Pakistan, is a must-read. And for his attendant lords, Bairam Khan and Abdur Rahim, courtier and poets in Mughal India, for that he was awarded the Muhammad Habib Prize for Medieval Indian History by the Indian History Congress, arguably the only Indian diplomat to have been honored in this manner. His history remains in circles of freedom, friendship, love, and loyalty in the Indian national struggle have received rave reviews. Post-retirement, he has a stint as ICW Director General. He is highly respected columnist, commentator of India-Pakistan relations, and brings in uncluttered understanding and appreciation of the complex relationship. Ambassador Vivek Karju, though he has also served as a senior diplomat in Cairo, Abu Dhabi, Kuala Lumpur, Washington, and as ambassador to Myanmar, Afghanistan, Thailand, Vivek Kardi's name is inseparably attached to Indian-Pakistan relations, in which he has been involved for more than 2 decades in different capacities. His role in addressing issues related to hijacking of Indian airline Flight 814, which has made it to Bollywood film, the Kargil War, and the failed Agra summit is part of history books. Thanks to his stellar role, he is arguably the most talked about Indian diplomat ever in Pakistan. Late Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf is still lament and is great that Vivek Kardo deprived him of the opportunity of making history. With this formidable background, his foresight experience, Vivek is the right person to enlighten us on the theme of the discussion, what is in store for us in future. So we will begin with Professor Mahapatra with you. The current POTUS does and say what he doesn't say. And he chooses a place and time of his choosing. There is nothing you can do. He is the one who broke the news about the having brokered ceasefire between India and Pakistan. He said in Washington, he said the same thing in Riyadh in presence of those Arab leaders, and the Crown Prince got up and gave a standing ovation. And not only that, yesterday in the presence of the South African President Ramaphosa and Ovalovia, again repeated the same thing. So we can go on saying what we want to say. He will say what he wants to say. But tell me, his utterances, his actions, have they in any manner emboldened the Pakistani army and ISI to do what they do? Or it might have really put in some reason and sense in them not to pursue any inimical relation with India. Over to you.
Thank you, Ambassador Kumar. Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ambassador Kumar, thank you for giving me yet another opportunity to be part of your excellent programs, which is always a learning experience with so many distinguished panelists and attentive audience. Now, you have given me the task of trying to understand what Pakistan understands from statements made by Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump has been saying many things, and quite often he's been repeatedly saying that. And what he's been saying, number one, that he has mediated the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. At another time, he says he helped bring about a ceasefire. Then he says he brokered a ceasefire. Then he says he used trade as a leverage to push for a ceasefire. Now, I was looking for his statement in the White House webpage. There is nothing there. He has been saying nothing is recorded. In the White House portals. But in the State Department website, you can see a statement from the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and the word brokerage has been mentioned there, that the United States brokered a ceasefire. Now, Donald Trump has also condemned the Pahalgam attack and said the U.S. stood with India. He has often sworn upon his friendship with Prime Minister Modi. But I feel that what he has not said is equally important for us to understand. Now, he has not accused Pakistan of having a hand in the Pahalgam attack. Number two, he has not criticized India for attacking the terror camps in Pakistan. And he has refrained from supporting India's successful destruction of terror camps in Pakistan. He did not call for a ceasefire after 9 terror camps were neutralized by the Indian armed forces. He did not criticize Pakistan for attacking Indian civilian targets. He did not prevent Pakistan from escalating the fight by attacking Indian military targets after targeting the civilian targets, nor criticized Islamabad after that. Now, he only asked his officials to get deeply involved in the negotiations with India and Pakistan. And then I just quoted the language used, brokerage, by the State Department. What could have Pakistan understood, or what would have pleased Pakistan from the Donald Trump statement and its policies? Number one, Trump cared less about India's accusation that Pakistan was involved in Pahalgam attack. Number two, Trump does not bother at all about cross-border terrorism, which India keeps complaining about. Three, Trump appears to have been convinced that Pakistan is also a victim of terrorism, fought terrorists on behalf of the US in Afghanistan for decades, that Pakistan recently handed over a dreaded terrorist to the United States. And of course, Pakistan drew a lot of praise from Trump during his address to the US Congress. Pakistan was fast enough to praise Trump to please him after he said that he has, played a role in bringing about a ceasefire. And he used it to turn Trump against India. If India would have praised Trump the way Pakistan did, Pakistan would have said, we are the first one to do so. India is too late. When India did not support Trump's assertion that he played a role, that to a mediatory role, in bringing about the ceasefire, then Pakistan appears to have succeeded in its second goal, that Trump seems to be angry against India, although he's not showing it. Now, Pakistan was also happy to realize yet again that it could play with the US very tactfully whenever it wants to, because it receives billions of dollars of assistance whenever it is needed, and it cheats the United States when it suits its purpose. It offers its support to the US to make India look like a rebel in American eyes, that Pakistan is prepared to play ball, but India has always been arrogant. Next, Pakistan was happy that Trump did not pressurize Pakistan to stop support to terrorist groups and treated India's response literally as a war against Pakistan. And then, in the middle of the war, the 3-day war, he facilitated even IMF loan to Pakistan. Now, Pakistan is very happy about Trump's statements on Kashmir. Now, Pakistan has always been trying to internationalize the Kashmir issue. Now, by making statements that it wants the United States to play a role in resolving the Kashmir dispute, Pakistan wants to convey to the Americans that, look, we are with you. It is India who is always opposing it. So, in order to put India in the bad light, Pakistan, I think, does beautifully well from their perspective diplomatically. Even now, you see, when India is sending so many parliamentarians to 32 countries, tell the world that, look, it is an issue of terrorism. We send our people there. What does Pakistan do? Pakistan says it is going to send their delegation of peace. So, uh, just now, whatever I said, as for your request to me, what Pakistan could have learned or how Pakistan could have been pleased by the statement made by Trump. Maybe in the future, when you hold a similar kind of exercise, what has India learned? How India should, deal with Trump? Then probably I'll say on that later. But thank you very much, Ambassador Kumar, for this great opportunity to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mahapatra. As usual, you have been very clear about what you want to say. Now I will request Captain Alok Bansal. Now you know what is the theme. You are free to say whatever you want to say with your experience. And let us not repeat whatever we have seen or heard on television. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. I think the main thrust of the discussion is, has Pakistan Army or ISI learned its lessons? The first blunt answer to this is no. Why? I'll come to it now. See, firstly, there is no doubt that Indian armed forces delivered their might. They targeted various defense infrastructure in Pakistan with phenomenal accuracy. But we need to understand that most of these attacks did not permeate outside the defense circles. And as a result, public at large in Pakistan, with the sole exception of the attack on Bolari camp, where a squadron leader and 5 airmen died, are generally oblivious to the damage that was actually caused by and large to the military targets, which military understood that there was a huge damage, but probably the public at large has not understood. As a result, the military has actually been able to spin a narrative whereby they have shown themselves as victors. And of course, one of the clearest manifestation of that is what we have seen, Asim Munir being elevated to the rank of Field Marshal. And of course, all and sundry congratulating him and going all over. So that's been the directive. I think, as Professor Chintamani Mahapatra also brought out very well, that the international support for India has also not been so forthright. We have not seen a very clear-cut shift towards India. And as a result, ISI or the Pakistan army is not under any major pressure to actually snap the links with terrorists or to change the track as under pressure. And we also need to understand that even IMF loan has come to them rather easily, while one second tranche was expected. But what they have got is another $1.4 billion of RSF. That shows that the Western world is willing to support them to a certain extent. Now, this being the situation, I won't say that there is no problem. So if we would have actually gone for a prolonged conflict rather than an intensive conflict, probably Pakistan would have suffered far more. And I think the biggest threat for Pakistan at this point of time is the Indus Water Treaty, which has already started hurting them. And that's one of the reasons why they are actually coming forward and are asking for negotiations. To my mind, I think ideally we should keep the pressure on Pakistan for a long time, because when it comes to Pakistan, the duration, the more longer the duration of strain, I think that is far more effective than the intensity of the conflict or the pressure on Pakistan, because Pakistan, because of its peculiar economic circumstances, is bound to have a problem. Because although IMF has given them loan, it has actually started now putting new conditionalities on it. As you know, agricultural income tax is coming into being from 1st April, but at the same time, IMF has actually introduced new taxes, has forced Pakistan government to start putting taxes on agricultural inputs, which is going to create problem. Now, that coupled with shortage of water or the erratic information about the availability or denial of water could cause havoc as far as the next crop of Pakistan is concerned. And I think if we can maintain this pressure for some time, I think then Pakistan army and ISI would start coming onto the line. One intended or unintended consequence of this Operation Sindoor has been that the fault lines in Pakistan to some extent have got bridged. I'm not trying to say that the Baloch have stopped fighting or something, but the political fault lines to some extent had got abridged when Imran Khan agreed to talk. Though, of course, his statement yesterday, where he said Asim Munir should not have declared himself as Field Marshal, he should have declared himself as the king, have further created problems as far as with the military establishment is concerned. But all said and done, there is no doubt that the political bickering to some extent got reduced. An army which was at the center of brickbats being told by the civil society managed to redeem itself, because they have tried to create a narrative inside Pakistan wherein at least they have succeeded in showing them that if they are not victors, at least they have managed to withhold a much larger adversary. And that has made some sort of a heroes out of them. And consequently, you don't see any efforts being made by Pakistan army to dissociate with these terror outfits. Of course, their fight with the TTP and BLA, etc., continues unabated. We will have issues as far as those issues are concerned, but will they learn a lesson and stop supporting terror outfits? Not to my mind. Sorry. So that is what it is. And I think we need to take it forward. How we have to take it forward, we'll have to think about it. We need to put pressure. I have always believed that it doesn't help to go for a kinetic action against Pakistan. We need to use non-kinetic means which actually degrade Pakistan much more. And as has been seen, that Indus Water Treaty has affected them far more than all the military actions, because whatever we have targeted in the military, it has degraded their military capabilities considerably. But the public in Pakistan, by and large, is oblivious to the damages, except those people who are living in close proximity to these targets. I think at this moment, I'd just like to say that much. That's all. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Captain Bansan. Now I will turn to Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor. Now, Operation Sindoor has been perhaps the most perfect example of how the three wings of the Indian Defence Forces have coordinated with each other, Army, Navy, and Air Force. And Air Force has come in for a great deal of much deserved praise, and how we have hit their target, how we have destroyed their JEM, LET, Hizbul Mujahideen centers, came back to quite close to GHQ, and even EM was mentioning today in some interviews that we, on 10th morning, destroyed 8 air bases and we made their totally non-operational. Now, with your experience, how long and how fast can Pakistan regroup the losses and how fast they can repair all the air strips that have been destroyed? Second thing is a considerable controversy. If you go to Western press, there's a lot of praise for the Chinese missiles, Chinese planes, and there is an equally critical ridicule of the Chinese stuff in Indian press. We say we destroyed their air defense system Lahore very first day, and we found one of their unexploded missile lying in Amritsar, and we have destroyed so many of these Turkish drones. So whether some article I read was that America should be concerned that Chinese have got such excellent equipment. Other story, the Chinese equipment was so many generations old, and the drones given by Turkey were also very old. So you are expert, you will tell us how far we have done, how far we have not done. And second thing, this issue of whether Rafale planes were downed or not, it doesn't die down. You just go to internet, you will see. Number maybe 5, number 6, but nobody is saying that nothing happened. But Pakistan has given no proof whatsoever. Over to you.
Good evening, everybody, and good evening to fellow panelists. I would begin with what Ambassador Surinder Kumar just asked. This war will be taught, this air campaign of 10th, which you just mentioned, will be taught in the coming decades. As Honorable Raksha Mantri a few days ago, when he visited a frontline base, he said in 23 minutes, by the time you have your breakfast, we had put the Air Force out of action. Never ever in the history of air power has an air operation which has lasted 23 minutes took out 11 precise targets. The targeting is one thing which the world is seeing, be it strike over the nuclear be it the terrorist hubs where the domes from the centers have the pictures that have come out. The collateral damage, be it in Murid Ke, or be it in Noor Khan, or be it in Bolari, or be it in Jacobabad, or be it in Sakar, or be it in Chunia, or be it in Pasrur, have been precise. Each and every picture which has been shown and depicted by the DG Air Ops in his operations has indicated the precise striking. So this is the first lesson I feel that we need to carry. Now, coming to a specific point about the Chinese weapons, it is first time that the Chinese weapons have been used in any conflict globally. So the whole world is watching, because the same weapons would be used in case China plans to attack Taiwan, or if the Chinese do an adventure in South China Sea, all the other countries would be observing these weapons and their usage. The narrative building is one area where I feel we are weak, because the global press has been supporting Pakistan, has been brought out by the previous speakers. And why would they do that? Because the Western equipment, which has been taken out by the Indian-made radars in our air defense guns, would not sell the world over. So a Western equipment which has been brought down by the Russian and the Indian indigenized DRDO weapons will not, sell well. And the Chinese stock market, where J10s and the PL15s and those companies, the stocks have been tumbling ever since this 4-day conflict. So this is an indication that people who understand conflict are aware of the capabilities. Now, the tactics and the other aspect about this air warfare is totally different and is totally, alien to our subcontinent. What we have seen in this 4-day conflict is a non-contact war. There has been absolutely no soldier-to-soldier contact at any sort, nor have the aeroplanes crossed freely across the IB to target. But what has happened is after 1971, that we have struck on the 7th early morning in wee hours, 4 targets in Pakistani Punjab. And from 1971 war, after 54 years, has Indian aeroplanes struck targets in Punjab with precise strike. So the general belief of the people in Pakistan, wherein they have built a narrative that this area is so secure that yahan ek parinda bhi par nahi maar sakta, has been taken away by the Indian strikes. So somewhere on the 7th morning, they got rattled. Now, the drones which they had got in large numbers from Turkey and from other countries were, sent to Indian airfields. And I would take this opportunity on your forum to mention 2 people's contribution who are not with us today in this world. One is Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, because Dr. Abdul Kalam is the person who started this BrahMos work, which has turned the tide against the adversary this time. He conceptualized BrahMos, it's named after Brahmaputra and Moskva River, and he had used a defunct engine from Russia, which was developed and thereafter indigenized, and it is doing wonders. It is going at 3 Mach today, and it's taking out targets from everywhere, land-based, sea-based, surface-based, submarine-based. This weapon is phenomenal. And second is Akash. That also contribution, and the whole thing goes to Dr. Abdul Kalam, who envisaged the whole thing, named it as Akash. And both Akash and Akash Tir did an exceptional job. The best thing which has come out in this campaign is our indigenous capability. The DRDO, the BEL, and the other agencies which have amalgamated the Indian weapons with our sensors and sensor-to-shooter integration to integrated air command and control center is the next takeaway, in my opinion, which has stood out in this conflict. Now, the conflict unfolded in a manner which shows Chinese involvement in a big way. The drone attacks took place when the Chinese satellite constellation Baidu was over the subcontinent. So it indicates that though China has not openly helped Pakistan, but their tactics, their F-17s, their J-10s, their HQ-9s, their HQ-16, their PL-15s, PL-10s, all the weapons which they have been providing to Pakistan were put to use for the first time. We have got an intact missile, like you just mentioned, close to Amritsar from the conflict, which would be analyzed by our scientists and engineers. And I'm sure something better would be coming out of this. The narrative building is one thing to take, and the second issue, which in my appreciation has stood out, is for the Indians to realize of the double standards of the West. It's absolutely clear, like Professor Chintamani just mentioned a little while ago, and Captain Alok Bansal also said, that the Americans, if I put it in a colloquial language, there is a rogue, but a child with whom the Americans are in love with. They, from 1979, from the time they raised, the Mujahideens against USSR, they are in love with this country. Whatsoever it does, it still rewards him, like a Coca-Cola or a Coke, which we give it to a child, or a chocolate. They give them, F-16s, the AMRAAM missiles, IMF loans, and they look the other side. So it suits them in all way that there is a part of this world where they have this say, and they have been exploiting it ever since. My only thing is that as Indians and as a nation, we should, see now more clearly the motives of the West in this conflict. The other issue which now we will have to focus is on indigenization. Because one thing which has emerged very clear is requirement for our space application, because this whole war was fought on space application weapons. And second thing which we need to do is to be self-reliant. So this period, by now the Pakistanis would have regrouped, they would have repaired their runways, they would be repairing their hangars, they will be salvaging whatsoever they have lost. placing demands globally, and which West will, happily oblige them to come back, and they will soon regroup. But the non-kinetic means we will have to keep pressure and somehow open the fault lines in that country for us to exploit. This is what I'll say till now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcel Kapoor. Now I turn to my friend Raghavan. You have done 2 postings in Pakistan. You have also seen Pakistan from the headquarters here. You've written books, so you know more than many others know. Tell me, what is psyche of the Pakistani people in the Pakistani army? In all this conflict, what do the Pakistani ordinary people think? At a time of crisis, normally you write down whosoever is in power and they might say, Jai Ho, but I am not sure whether many Pakistanis heart and heart they really feel that way. Second is the biggest beneficiary in this conflict is General Munir. He become field marshal. So how does it augur for India-Pakistan relations in future? And lastly, that do you think sooner or later, if you go by history from 1947, in spite of how many people have been killed, what has happened, sooner or later we have again come back to the table to talk. You can see 65, 71, Kargil, we talk. So do you think this time the gap will be much longer or there will not be talk at all? Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Great to be on your platform again. I'll try to be very brief. I know your time limit is 10 minutes, and I'll try to stick to that 10 minutes and confine myself to 3 points, because there's a lot which can be said, but I'll stick myself to 3 points, beginning with the question you asked about how Pakistan has reacted. I think Pakistan has reacted to the whole episode in much the same way as India has reacted, with a sense of triumphalism. And if you want to understand Pakistan reactions, please study Indian reactions. So the view in Pakistan is that they have triumphed, they have hammered us, and India has been deflated, and all their political objectives have been met. Why should they feel like that? There are any number of reasons, but I think the important point to remember is that in every conflict, and there have been numerous conflicts in the past, in every conflict, Pakistan only has to stand up to us to get a sense of victory. They don't have to win. A draw is a victory. So this is precisely how they view the current, the aftermath of the current conflict. They feel that they have stood up to this much bigger, much more formidable neighbor, and that therefore is a grounds for declaring victory. How the details of it are less important than the fact that there is this mood of triumphalism, that not only have they stood up to India in military terms, but also they have inflicted damage, and also that they have achieved their political objectives, which is by putting a very big question mark on the Indian narrative that everything is normal in Jammu and Kashmir. And B, they have given the Jammu and Kashmir dispute a certain international profile, which was always their effort. So I would say that, in brief, that is the Pakistani assessment of the current situation. I want to mention 2 more points, because I think we can conduct enough postmortems of what has happened and why it happened and what had happened before the Pahalgam attack. But I think it's also important to look forward. And when we look forward, I think we have to look at what is now being termed increasingly as the new normal. And one of the important constituents of that new normal is that every act of terror is equivalent to an act of war. This is almost like the central doctrine of the new normal. And we have to then try to see what this exactly means in the light of our own experience of Pakistan, and also on the basis of our assessment of the situation in Pakistan. Now, the the infrastructure of facilitating terror attacks, the kind of enabling environment for terrorist groups to operate in Pakistan. All of that is well known. And we also know that Pakistan has been involved in numerous terrorist attacks against India historically. But it is also the case, and we know this, that the Pakistani state or the enabling environment it has created is not responsible for every act of terrorism which takes place. Because we know that there are numerous acts of terrorism which are taking place in Pakistan too. And there are many groups in Pakistan operating with enough freedom in Pakistan who are not in the control of the Pakistani ISI or any organ of state. So how we will distinguish in future between acts which have been carried out with the involvement of the Pakistani state or which may be taking place and which can take place through other actors, that is a question which assumes importance because of this doctrinal position which we are taking that every act of terror amounts to an act of war. I think this is something which we have to think about, particularly given our understanding of Pakistan as a deeply dysfunctional state. The other point I wish to make is about the international response. In my understanding, especially as these 7 delegations have gone to different parts of the world, I think most countries, when they view South Asia from the outside, they see three issues which have got combined, and it's difficult to disaggregate. The first issue is, of course, that of terrorist attacks, the threat of terrorist attacks, and the counterterrorism kinetic options which India may resort to. So terrorism is one factor which all countries, when they view South Asia, there's something which they keep in mind. The second thing which is increasingly going to become part of the radar screen are the lower riparian concerns of Pakistan because of the Indus Waters Treaty being kept in abeyance. Now, a number of countries around the world, when they see the India-Pakistan situation today with riparian issues coming to the center of the radar, will also evaluate what is happening based on their own interests. So we should expect that a number of lower riparian countries or those countries which have lower riparian concerns will certainly look at Pakistan's position with much greater sympathy than we expect. They will not simply see it as a terrorism issue, they will also see it as an upper riparian, lower riparian issue. The third aspect, of course, with which countries will view India-Pakistan relations, quite obviously, will be the nuclear flashpoint, and that is also because of the enormous importance which Trump's tweets have given to the nuclear issue, whether we like it or not. So I think that in the months ahead, we are not going to find an international environment which is wholly conducive to our line of thinking. Because while countries will sympathize with the terrorism factor which we have to contend with, they will also give weightage both to the nuclear flashpoint issue and also to the upper riparian, lower riparian issue. To sum all this up, my final point, and I'm again saying I don't want to do a post-mortem because there are many points of view in that, but looking ahead, I see one looming factor in the next 4 or 5 months to which we have to pay a great deal of attention. After the August 2019 legislative changes in J&K, after a long period of time, Jammu and Kashmir again figured in the UN Security Council as an informal item, but nevertheless, there was a fair amount of discussion about it. I think this time, Pakistan is a member of the UN Security Council, non-permanent member, In July, it is going to be president of the UN Security Council. I wonder whether they will raise the issue of the Indus Waters Treaty in the Security Council and simultaneously in the ICJ about how India is violating customary international law apart from its treaty obligations. And in case the matter comes up in the Security Council, it is possible that we may face a more slippery slope this time because of the factors I mentioned earlier about how the international response is unlikely to be as conducive as we would like it to be. I'll stop with that, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raghavan. With your insight, you have raised so many valid points. Now I turn to you, Vivek. You have the last word. You have heard everybody. You can react and comment on everybody's comment and your own, especially some of the points that Raghavan has raised. Over to you, Vivek. Unmute yourself.
Thank you, Surendra. Thank you for inviting me. I'll be sticking to the 10 minutes that you've given me, and I'll make a few points. The first is that no country wants, as I've often said, a nuclear Somalia. Pakistan has 24 crore people. It has nuclear weapons. And the idea of instability in Pakistan is inconceivable in the international community. And that, I think, was vividly illustrated by our being the lone voice which was protesting against the IMF loan tranche. I thought that at that stage, our diplomatic response could have been a little different. We could have taken the moral high point to say that we are not against the Pakistan people, that we are against the terrorists and those who support the terrorist infrastructure, but that since the IMF loan is for the Pakistan people, we will not come in the way, but we would want a greater scrutiny, we would want greater conditionality, we would like more staff work. However, I can understand that in the heat of battle, such nuances may be difficult for a government to be able to convey to a domestic audience. But that brings me to the point that was made that the world is full of double standards. Of course it is. Those of us who dealt with international relations deal with double standards all the time, and that is something that we should be aware of. Many people accuse us of double standards too. So I don't think we should really think that the world is an ideal place where justice and equity prevail. That's my first point. My second point is, I think, what Raghavan also obliquely referred to, is that terrorism is not high on the international agenda. The world is grappling with the great changes and I would even say, the traumatic changes that Trump is bringing about. And therefore, I, for one, had written and obliquely advocate. In fact, not why obliquely, I had in my writings in March advocated after the Jafar Express attack, which Pakistan had attributed to us, that we should have undertaken a very high-powered and high-level diplomatic effort to reach out to the major powers to tell them that we were being wrongly charged by Pakistan, and that if they do anything, then the onus would have been on them. Whether that would have deterred the Pakistanis is a different issue, but at least we would have prepared the ground. Now that now that these teams have gone, I think in many countries they might receive a response that whereas they condemn terrorism, whereas they have full sympathy with India, and whereas obviously Pakistan should not undertake all this, but because of what I think Raghavan said about the nuclear aspect, they might uh, advocate that diplomacy should be given a chance. Now, I know that there are enough arrows in our quiver, diplomatic quiver, to respond to this, but that is a sentiment in the international community and among the major powers uh, that we should be aware of. My third point is on the Indus Waters Treaty. I, for one, believe that the government took the right step. I'm aware of the uh, the dangers that might be caused to our reputation among the lower riparian states, but I tend to think that we have a perfectly plausible case to say that in terms of international law, this might be new areas, but then international law evolves. I tend to think that we should advocate that we've been very generous with the Pakistanis. We've given them 80% of the waters of the Indus system, and that it is not open to a country to take advantage of a treaty for 6.5 decades and use that period to undermine its treaty partner in every way. That a treaty has obligations which are technical, but a treaty of this nature cannot be viewed in isolation from the overall relationship. And I think we would be on sound ground because, as we know, that Malefides uh, vitiates every action. It will be tough selling, but I do think that we should look at this aspect as we go forward. That is point number one about the Indus Waters Treaty. Point number two is that I do not know precisely if we have calculated the kind of damage that we can do to Pakistan and Pakistani agriculture by withholding waters at critical times and by then giving waters, because at some stage the pond, say on Baglihar and on Kishan Ganga, will get full, the pondage would get full, and waters would have to be released. I personally spoke to some farmers, some cotton farmers in the Punjab who are engaged in this cultivation, and they say that yes, some damage can be caused, say to the cotton crop, which we know is vital for the Pakistani economy. But they were telling me that, strangely, this may prove a blessing in disguise because the Pakistanis may adopt better cultivation methods of cotton. So I would tend to think the jury is out on that. Uh, yes, what will cause greater concern is that Pakistan would be denied flood warnings. But with satellite imagery now available, I suppose that too, the Pakistanis can act, the Chinese friends can provide them with accurate satellite imageries of what is happening on the water situation in India. So they could perhaps be better prepared, even though this will not be a full substitute for the warnings that would come from us. So uh, I agree with the government's decision, but I do believe that we need to examine uh, the full implications of how much worry that Pakistan will have over holding our holding Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance, in actual fact, more thoroughly. And that brings me to my last point, and which is the question of narrative. I think on narrative, uh, as far as this exchange is concerned, There have been persistent reports. The Pakistanis have claimed this. There've been persistent reports in the Western press uh, that India lost some platforms on day one. We ourselves, if I recollect correctly, in our briefings, did not disclose anything substantial except to say that combat losses are a part of the game. I do believe, as the Air Marshal said, our response uh, in the end, especially on the 10th morning, was very, very impressive. We showed reach, we showed accuracy, as we showed accuracy on the first day. But narratives are built not only on performance on the ground, they are also built on perception. Now, we know that as far as the West is concerned, their primary question at the moment is the efficacy of Chinese weapon systems. They've never been used in a battlefield environment earlier. They were used here for the first time. And they also know that there is no lacking in skill in Indian pilots or in Indian policy, Indian defense sort of planners. Therefore, there is a natural curiosity among them as to what happened and why did this happen. And this is a Western debate, and so the jury again is out on this in the West, and they are concerned about it. I, for one, feel that our greatest gain here was doctrinal, and that is the point that we need to press. Uh, for over 2.5 decades, the Pakistanis perpetuated, and what I call the Ayatollahs of nuclear theology. I'll take just half a minute more, Surendra. The Ayatollahs of nuclear theology in the West supported them by saying that there was no space for conventional kinetic action in what the Pakistanis termed as the nuclear overhang. We began exploring the space with the surgical strikes of 16, and Pakistan, in order to preserve its doctrine, denied it. The second step was Balakot. The third step is this. When we went in and we showed that yes, there is space for conventional kinetic action by a state which is suffered an unacceptable terrorist attack. Now, what is an unacceptable terrorist attack? I think that is determined by the nature of the attack and the context of the attack, etc. Uh, the very last observation I'll make is Donald Trump's comments should not be taken lightly. He is erratic, but he's been saying mediation. The state Professor Mahapatra was right. In the very first State Department statement, they said use the word brokered ceasefire. We've denied that. I dare say the 7 teams that are going, of them, the greatest difficulty that we will face on this score with regard to mediation will be the team led by Mr. Tharoor, which is going to the US, where he will be asked bluntly that did this ceasefire, cessation of action, or whatever we called it, take place because of American intervention, or was it because of India-Pakistan bilateral understandings? My own experience in these matters is that a web of conversations keep taking place in situations like this. The Americans talk, the Europeans talk to us, to the Pakistanis, we talk to people, the Pakistanis talk to people, but ultimately decisions have to be taken bilaterally. And then, since we know success has many fathers and defeat is an orphan, here if there's a success, cessation of hostilities, then everyone will claim success. And President Trump is a master of claiming success. But that is a narrative that we will have to meet. Thank you.
Thank you. All of you have been very eloquent, and I think it has been very fascinating and stimulating, informative discussion. So big clapping virtually to all of you. But before we close, let me ask you all for 1 minute, what is the jury on the theme of this discussion? Is it still no, or any softness? We have resumed the beating of retreat. Now, as for Trump, when we are discussing the trade deal, we can't go on really contradict him. He doesn't really allow anybody to contradict. We have seen what happened to Ramaphosa. He barely escaped the kind of treatment which was reserved for Zelensky. We have to be soft pedaling, but I think we have a lot of support in the Congress and Senate. And if we use our contact of the Indian diaspora, the Indian Americans, it can really help a lot. So I give 1 minute to each of you. Please tell that there's no chance of any kind of cooling down, and maybe 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, we again resume some kind of talking, or there's no talk only about POK. We start with you, Vivek, and then we go down to everybody.
Well, I do think that as we are both neighbors, we cannot cut off all contact. The DGMO's hotline is working, and it worked all through this crisis. The ceasefire on the IB and in J&K and the LOC seems to have been re-established. And we need to talk to Pakistan about humanitarian issues. But I do not see the prospects of any serious engagement with them on either conflict resolution or on cooperative mechanisms in the foreseeable future.
Okay, Raghavan, over to you. Please mute us, yeah.
Well, in my view, for at least the last, last 5-6 years, or perhaps even longer, talking or not talking is not a foreign policy issue or about Pakistan. It's a domestic political issue. And really, I have no competence to comment on it. It has nothing to do with India-Pakistan relations.
Okay, now I will.
May I take half a second on this?
Please.
Well, I normally don't talk about all this, but I recollect that I think Raghavan had joined Jaswant Singh then or not, but Jaswant Singh after Kargil had called me once, and there was another gentleman sitting with him, and he'd asked me that Vivek, क्या करना है, क्या सोचते हो, बातचीत होनी है? मैं कहा सर, आई स्पीक इन हिंदी, मैं कहा सर, हिंदुस्तानी जो नेता है उस बातचीत करना चाहता है, वो उसकी आदत से मजबूर है, वो बातचीत करता है. तो अगर आप पाकिस्तान से बातचीत नहीं करना चाहते हैं तो ये सोच लें कि कब तक आप इस जो हमारी उत्तेजना होती है उसको रोक सकते हैं. उस पर जो दूसरे सज्जन बैठे थे उन्होंने कहा कि हाँ, विवेक ठीक कह रहा है, लेकिन आपकी वो कंस्टिट्यूएंसी नहीं है, तो इसलिए आप रोक सकते हैं. लेकिन हमें मालूम है, और राघवन मौजूद हैं यहाँ, राघवन मुझसे कहते जा रहे थे, सर कुछ करिए, ये लोग उत्तेजित हो रहे हैं. लेकिन वो जमाना चला गया, और आज के दिन सुरेंद्र भाई, मुझे पूरा यकीन है कि हाँ, डोमेस्टिक इशू है, ये बिल्कुल है. इंडिया पाकिस्तान इज नॉट अ फॉरेन पॉलिसी इशू. India Pakistan is a unique issue, and I learned this when I was dealing with, for 6 years I dealt with Pakistan. Raghavan dealt with it, and all of us who dealt with it know that it is not a foreign policy issue alone. It is as much a domestic issue as much as it is a foreign policy issue. And therefore, given the domestic configuration, I've said that I do not see an engagement, on substantive engagement in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor.
My appreciation is that we have stirred the hornet's nest as far as the armed forces is concerned. They are wounded now. The intertwining of the terrorists with the army is an open secret. The funeral of the terrorists being attended by the serving lieutenant generals, major generals, and the top leadership, and with the national flag adorning their coffins, is an indication that how the state has taken the terrorists on board as a part of their national policy. So we have to be very careful. They would try to rake up issues once they get this initial setback behind, and we have to be working at double the speed now to be alert, to indigenize, to equip ourselves, and parallelly have a huge diplomatic arm going around giving Indian perspective to the world, which I feel is taken over by the Western narrative for obvious reasons.
Thank you, Captain Alok Bansal.
See, as I said very clearly, I think if you want a short answer, no, I think they will not. But at the same time, Pakistan army has won the war of narrative as far as domestically is concerned. They have actually convinced the Pakistani populace that they have been able to withhold to a bigger Pakistan. And they have suffered the damage. So I think in foreseeable future, they would not want to up the ante. So you may not see a major terrorist attack like this happening in near future, because economically they are still in a very bad shape. And I have always felt that our best bet against Pakistan is economics, I think so. And to that extent, I'm a very strong supporter of people-to-people connect and even trade, because that gives us extra leverage against Pakistan rather than actually reducing it. And to my mind, non-kinetic actions are always far more rewarding than kinetic actions when it comes to Pakistan.
Thank you, my dear friend, Professor Mahapatra. Reading the mind of Donald Trump.
So, in my view, dialogue is better than no dialogue. Even if it is fruitless, keep talking, don't isolate. A country which can fail anytime, a country which has nuclear weapons, a country which is full of terrorist groupings, it is better to talk than not to talk. Secondly, if the Pakistani government and the Pakistani army is celebrating that they have won the war, let it be. Let it be. They have their own domestic constituency. But if we are confident that we have taught them a lesson, that we have avenged the killings of innocent tourists, why not? Donald Trump is in a hurry to do something about ceasefires around the world. He wants to appear to be a peacemaker. He has miserably failed in Ukraine, and then even in Gaza, he announced a ceasefire, and it has gone nowhere. So if he got an opportunity to pat himself on his back and said, "Well, I have done it," in my view, India maintained silence initially, which was good. Countering that is no good. Thank you, sir.
Okay. We have amongst us in the audience Major General Ashok Mehta, my old friend, veteran of many battles. General Mehta, do you have any comment on what you heard so far? Unmute yourself. Yes, you are unmute now.
Yeah.
Very
Thank
briefly,
you.
1 minute.
Thank you.
not
Very
more.
quickly.
Hmm.
First, brilliant discussion. I have one operational, one diplomatic, and one question. My operational comment is that the current counterterrorism doctrine that we have evolved, this new normal, is there bereft of a national security doctrine. While the IAF has proved dominant force, the air power as non-escalatory or minimally escalatory, we have to remember that they are good in the war of attrition. There is the land battle for which So there is a question of attrition and a question of territory. Ukraine is territory. If we want POK, we will take territory. My diplomatic comment on diplomacy is that by and large, diplomacy has not kept up with the speed of the military operations. If you look around, not a single country has come out in support of India except questionably Israel. While Pakistan already has on its side China and Turkey saying that they will defend the territorial integrity and sovereignty of that country. In the matter of sending out these delegations, I don't think much will come out of this. Now on the talks, I think it is very important that talks have to continue, or at least have to start to continue. And this DGMO hotline is a routine conversation between the military. Our Prime Minister has said terror and talks will not go together, yet he says we will talk only about terror. Okay, talk about terror. So I think there is no consistency, in my view, on our stand about not talking to Pakistan. I cannot believe that the international community, United States, UK, David Lammy has already said that US and UK will get them to talk.
Mr. Mehta, we will have another discussion after 1 week.
My question is for Vivek Kajju. He said something about Jafar Express. And we were losing Vivek Kajju while he was speaking. So can he make that point? What point is he making about Jafar Express? Because Pakistan has accused us of fomenting terrorism inside Pakistan.
Okay, now let Vivek comment if he wishes to. Yeah, unmute yourself. Vivek, unmute you.
The Pakistanis said after the Jafar Express attack that India was responsible for it. And the Jafar Express attack, we all know what happened. 33 people were shot. The women, old men, children were segregated. The Pakistanis have yesterday said that the BLA and the TTP are Indian proxies. They had also said that after the Jafar Express attack, everything has changed. They said this. So I wrote in an article, I think, which was carried around the 20th or 21st of March, that we should expect an attack in the foreseeable future, which is possible, and that we should alert the international community that we have nothing to do with it, at least the major powers. And that if Pakistan tries to take action in response to the Jafar Express attack against us, it will be escalatory, something that Vikram Misri said in his briefing, that it will be escalatory and that we should not be blamed. So what I was pleading was that there should be intense diplomatic effort, quiet but intense diplomatic effort, so that the major powers could tell Pakistan, I say, the Indians haven't done it, they've said this, don't try anything in response, because that will be very escalatory. That is what.
Thank you. I have 1 minute left. BSF has come a lot of praise for their operations. And here we have former DG of BSF, my friend Mahind Pawar from Jaipur. Mahind ji, 1 minute. Do you want to comment on anything?
I listened to all the persons who were on the panel, and I found very interesting discourse. And I agree with Ambassador Karju that we must have dialogue, and also with Captain Alok Bansal that non-kinetic action will be, I think, more important. But at that about cross-border terrorism, I think it will continue. Pakistan will always use this cross-border terrorism by Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba people, because they all have not been killed. Few people might have been killed, but they are in thousands, thousands and thousands. They are there in case one knows about that organization. So I think it's a matter of time, and I wish it doesn't occur, but we have to face this cross-border terrorism in near future. Thank you.
Thank you all once again, all the panelists. You have been very kind for sparing your time at this time. And I hope to have you again sometime near future. Thank you and good night.
Good night. Thank you for organizing this.